A sickening smack cut through the silence of the showroom. Crack! Time seemed to stop. A young, aggressive salesman had just slapped an elderly black man with such force that his glasses flew off his face and skittered across the tile. Smartphones appeared instantly. People were recording, whispering, and pointing. "I said don't touch the merchandise, you old vagrant," the salesman screamed, his voice booming enough for the whole store to hear. The old man gripped the display table to keep from falling, his chest heaving, but he remained silent. Nobody knew who he really was. Nobody knew why he had walked in. Nobody knew that the next 10 minutes would cost that salesman his career, his reputation, and his livelihood. And the part that stunned the crowd the most? The old man didn't scream back. He simply bent down, retrieved his glasses, and turned away. This wasn't a moment of defeat. This was the setup for his ultimate victory. The old man's name was Tiago Reyna, a retired aerospace engineer, a man whose mind had designed navigation systems for 30 years, a man who had built satellites that orbited the Earth, a man who commanded respect in boardrooms but never demanded it in public. That afternoon, he had walked into Elite Electronics, the flashiest store in the district. Not for himself, he wanted to buy a high-end tablet for his granddaughter, Georgia Reese, who was starting medical school and needed the best technology available. But the second he stepped through the glass doors, the staff only saw his worn brown work jacket, his gray work pants, and his thick white beard. He didn't fit the sterile high-tech aesthetic. He didn't look like a paying customer. To them, he looked like a loiterer. Tiago walked toward the most advanced tablet on the stand. It was crisp, fast, and expensive. He reached out to check the screen resolution. That was his only crime. From the counter, a harsh voice barked out, "Hey, you! Hands off!" Before Tiago could even explain, Stanley Henson, the store's top salesman, stormed over. Smack! Stanley's hand connected with Tiago's cheek. The customers gasped. The woman in the beige coat kept filming. Tiago stumbled back, his hand cupping his stinging face. The humiliation burned hotter than the slap. Stanley stepped into his personal space, chest puffed out. "This isn't a shelter, old man. You want to touch expensive things? Go find a job." He probably just wanted to steal a charger, another employee joked. Laughter rippled through the store. Tiago listened to every giggle. He swallowed the rage. He didn't fight back because he knew that true power doesn't need to shout. He adjusted his jacket and walked out the door. But he didn't go back to his car. He walked directly across the street to a shop with a clearance sign in the window. It was Catherine Cox's electronics shop, quiet, struggling, but welcoming. Catherine looked up from the counter. She saw the red mark on Tiago's face immediately. She didn't see a vagrant. She saw a grandfather in pain. "Oh my goodness, sir," she rushed out from behind the desk with a chair. "Please sit down. Let me get you some water." Tiago caught his breath. "I just need a tablet for a medical student." Catherine smiled warmly. "I have the perfect one. It's powerful, lightweight, and I can give you a discount." No slap, no insults, just human decency. Tiago watched her carefully. She showed him the device, explaining the specs with patience. After 20 minutes, she asked, "Is this the one you'd like, sir?" Tiago looked around the empty shelves of her failing shop, then looked her in the eye. "You treated me with dignity," he said softly. "That is a rare thing today." Catherine blushed. "It's just the right thing to do." Tiago nodded. "I came to buy one tablet for Georgia." He paused, reaching into his jacket pocket. "But after what happened across the street," his voice became authoritative, "I'll take your entire inventory, everything." Catherine froze. "Excuse me?" Tiago smiled. "Every laptop, every tablet. I'm donating them to the local youth center. You've earned this." He pulled out a checkbook. Catherine stared as he wrote a figure that would save her business from bankruptcy. She burst into tears. 30 minutes later, a delivery truck was loading up the boxes. Across the street, Stanley stood at the window of Elite Electronics, confused. His face went pale as he watched the old vagrant directing the movers. Suddenly, the regional manager of Elite Electronics stormed onto the sales floor, phone in hand, face red with fury. "Henson," the manager yelled, "do you have any idea who you just assaulted?" Stanley stammered, "Just some bum. That bum is Tiago Reyna. He's the silent investor who owns this entire commercial plaza. You just slapped our landlord." Stanley's knees buckled. The color drained from his face as he watched Tiago shake hands with Catherine through the window. "Get out." The manager pointed to the door. "You're fired, and the police are on their way." Stanley stood there, jobless and humiliated, watching the man he called a beggar save a stranger's livelihood. Kindness is an investment that always pays off. Arrogance is a debt you can't afford to pay. If you think Stanley got exactly what he deserved, hit that like button and share this story to remind the world you never know who you're talking to. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the glass facade of Elite Electronics as Tiago Reyna pushed open the heavy door. The store gleamed with polished chrome and spotless displays, each device positioned like a museum artifact under perfect lighting. He'd driven 40 minutes to get here, determined to find the best tablet money could buy for Georgia Reese, his granddaughter who'd just been accepted into medical school. His worn brown work jacket, the same one he'd had for 15 years, bore oil stains near the pocket from tinkering in his garage workshop. His gray work pants had seen better days, frayed slightly at the cuffs. The thick white beard he'd grown in retirement gave him a weathered appearance that didn't match the sleek aesthetic of the showroom. Stanley Henson spotted him immediately from his position near the premium displays. The top salesman's eyes narrowed as he tracked Tiago's movements across the floor. Stanley prided himself on reading customers within seconds, the confident stride of big spenders, the hesitant shuffle of browsers, the suspicious movements of potential thieves. This old man fit none of the profitable categories. Stanley straightened his silk tie and moved to intercept, his polished shoes clicking sharply against the tile. He positioned himself directly in Tiago's path, arms crossed, radiating territorial aggression. "Can I help you with something?" The question wasn't an offer, it was a challenge. Tiago looked up, slightly startled. "Yes, actually, I'm looking for a high-performance tablet, something reliable for medical school applications." Stanley's jaw tightened. The clothes told him everything he needed to know. This man couldn't afford a phone charger, let alone their premium inventory. "Sir, perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the discount electronics store across the street." Tiago's expression remained patient, though confusion flickered in his eyes. "I appreciate the suggestion, but I'm specifically interested in your top-of-the-line model. My granddaughter—" "Look," Stanley interrupted, stepping closer, "we don't do payment plans here. Everything's full price up front." "I understand, that's not an issue." Stanley's lips curled into a condescending smile. "These tablets start at $1,500. "I'm aware." Tiago moved past him toward the display stand where the most advanced model sat gleaming under LED spotlights. He needed to check the screen resolution, the processing speed, the storage capacity. Georgia deserved the absolute best. His weathered hand reached toward the device. "Don't touch the displays!" Stanley's voice cracked like a whip across the showroom. Before Tiago could withdraw his hand, Stanley closed the distance in 2 aggressive steps. The slap came fast and brutal, an open palm that connected with Tiago's cheek with a sickening crack that echoed through the suddenly silent store. Tiago's glasses flew from his face, clattering across the polished tile. He stumbled backward, gripping the edge of a display table, his chest heaving as he fought to maintain balance. The burning sensation spread across his face like fire. Smartphones materialized in customers' hands. The woman in the beige coat was already recording, her expression a mixture of shock and fascination. "I said don't touch the merchandise, you old vagrant." Stanley's voice boomed through the store, ensuring every witness heard his justification. Tiago stood there, hand pressed to his stinging cheek, saying nothing. The humiliation burned deeper than the physical pain. Tiago bent slowly, retrieving his glasses from where they'd skidded beneath a display. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of commanding respect in boardrooms, of designing systems that required absolute precision, of building a life where dignity was earned through competence. He straightened, adjusted the frames on his face, and turned toward the exit without a word. "That's right, keep moving. This isn't a shelter." Another employee laughed nervously from behind the counter. Probably wanted to steal a charging cable. The automatic doors slid open, and Tiago stepped into the afternoon heat. But he didn't walk toward his car, his eyes fixed on the small storefront across the street, Catherine Cox Electronics, with its faded clearance sale signs in the window. The bell chimed softly as he entered. The contrast was immediate. Where Elite Electronics had been all cold chrome and hostile efficiency, Catherine's shop felt warm despite its obvious struggles. Half-empty shelves, older models, handwritten price tags. Catherine looked up from paperwork at the counter. She was in her 50s, tired eyes that brightened when she saw a customer. Then those eyes widened with concern. "Oh my goodness, sir." She rushed from behind the desk, grabbing a folding chair. "Your face. Please, sit down. Let me get you some water." The red handprint was already darkening on Tiago's cheek. "I'm all right," he said quietly, but accepted the chair gratefully. Catherine returned with a bottle of water and a clean cloth. "What happened?" "I tried to shop across the street." Her expression shifted to understanding, then anger, then sadness. "Elite Electronics?" Tiago nodded. "I'm so sorry. That's completely unacceptable."
Catherine handed him the water, waiting until his breathing steadied. "What were you looking for, sir?" "A tablet for my granddaughter. She's starting medical school next month." Catherine's face lit up despite the awful circumstances. "Congratulations to her. That's wonderful." She walked to a display shelf. "I have something that might work perfectly. It's powerful, lightweight, and I can give you a substantial discount." For the next 20 minutes, Catherine explained specifications with genuine patience. She didn't rush him, didn't judge his appearance, didn't question whether he could afford it. She simply treated him like a grandfather trying to help his granddaughter succeed. "Is this the one you'd like, sir?" she finally asked. Tiago looked around the struggling shop, the empty spaces where inventory should have been, the outdated fixtures, the woman who'd shown him basic human decency when the flashy store across the street had shown him violence. "You treated me with dignity," he said softly. "That's become a rare thing." Catherine blushed. "It's just the right thing to do." Tiago nodded slowly, reaching into his jacket pocket. "I came here to buy one tablet for Georgia." He paused, his voice shifting, becoming the authoritative tone he'd used in countless business meetings. "But after what just happened across the street, I've changed my mind. I'll take your entire inventory, everything in this store." Catherine's face froze. "I'm sorry?" "Every laptop, every tablet, every device you have, I'm donating them to the local youth center." He pulled out a checkbook, the expensive leather kind that Catherine hadn't seen in years. "You've earned this sale, Miss Cox." She watched, speechless, as he wrote a figure that would cover 6 months of rent, restock her shelves, and finally silence the bankruptcy attorney who'd been calling weekly. Catherine burst into tears, her hands shaking as she looked at the check. "I don't understand. Sir, this is—" "It's what kindness is worth," Tiago said simply. Within 30 minutes, a delivery truck Catherine didn't own had arrived. Tiago made a single phone call, and suddenly professional movers were boxing up her inventory, loading everything carefully, while Catherine stood in shock, still clutching the check. Across the street, Stanley stood at Elite Electronics' window, his face pressed against the glass. The old vagrant was directing movers, making phone calls, shaking hands with Catherine like they were sealing a business deal. "What the hell?" Stanley muttered. Behind him, the showroom doors burst open. Marcus Webb, the regional manager, stormed across the floor, his phone clutched in one white-knuckled hand, his face purple with rage. "Henson!" Stanley spun around. "Sir, I can explain." "Explain?" Marcus thrust his phone forward, showing the viral video already spreading across social media. "You just assaulted a customer in front of 20 witnesses. He was touching the displays without permission. Do you have any idea who that man is?" Marcus's voice climbed higher with each word. Stanley glanced back at the window, at Tiago crossing the street now, walking with purpose towards Elite Electronics. Just some homeless guy trying to... That old vagrant is Tiago Reyna, retired aerospace engineer, silent investor. He owns this entire commercial plaza. You just slapped our landlord. The color drained from Stanley's face like water from a broken glass. His knees buckled. Through the window, he watched Tiago enter their store, Catherine following respectfully behind him. "Get out." Marcus pointed towards the door with a shaking finger. "You're fired. Security is escorting you out, and the police are already on their way."